Hello guys, welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you are new here. Today's video is going to be another book video. I'm going to do a wrap-up recap of all of the books that I read in February. You guys, I was absolutely unhinged this month. I read too much. It was overkill, honestly. I read 14 books this month and it's February, so it's a short month. I was in a little bit of a life slump though, and I was taking a bit of a break from my YouTube channel, so I had a lot of time on my hands and I really just went for it. When you read that many books back to back, they all just start to blur together. And I feel like I need to like take a minute and like simmer on a book after reading it instead of just like immediately diving into the next one, which is pretty much what I did all month. But yeah, I'm pulling up my Goodreads app so I can go back and start at the beginning of the month and see what I read this month. I read all of my books on my phone, mostly using the Libby app, so I am at complete mercy of my library card deciding what I get to read. I literally have like 40 books on hold and I just read what becomes available first. So the books I ended up reading were pretty random, but like ones that I picked. I just didn't get to like really pick the order I read them in. Okay, starting from the beginning of February, the very first book I read this month was The Last Mrs Parish by Liv Constantine. This book was so good. I absolutely loved it. This book has very Gone Girl vibes. There's a lot of twists and turns in this book that you don't expect, and it makes it really exciting to read. I don't want to go into too much detail about what this book is about because I don't want to spoil anything or give anything away. I feel like if you're going to read this book, it's best to just like go into it completely blind, not knowing what's going to happen or anything like that. But a tiny little summary that doesn't give too much away is that it's basically about this girl who is a gold digger and she is trying to steal this other woman's husband who has like a ton of money, is very successful. So she sees this couple and this man, and she wants to try to break up their marriage so that she can have him because she just really wants to be like a rich man's wife basically. But yeah, there are a lot of twists, a lot of turns, a lot of unexpected moments. It was such an exciting book to read. It was a little hard for me to get through like the first part of it though, because I just hated the girl so much, and so like reading from her perspective just made me mad because she was awful. But it's so good, it's so worth it. This is a 5 out of 5 for me. I loved this book. After that, I read The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab, and this became one of my favorite books. It's definitely in my top 10, maybe even my top 5. I really loved this book. I think this was the longest book I read this month. It was pretty long and it took me a little while to get through it. It's a pretty slow moving book, which normally really irritates me, but for some reason this one didn't bother me that it was so slow. It felt like it was pretty intentionally slow, and I don't know, I really enjoyed reading it, even though it wasn't like fast paced or like super exciting. Describing this book, it comes across as like fantasy fiction type of book, which it kind of is, but it doesn't really read that way. It feels still like a very normal like fiction romance type of book. Basically, the story is about Addie LaRue, who makes a deal with the devil kind of, and ends up with a curse where she lives forever, but nobody can ever remember her. So she's basically living her life and she can never die. She can do whatever she wants, travel anywhere, she's seeing the world. But the curse is that everybody immediately forgets her as soon as she is like out of their sight. So she is free to live forever and do whatever she wants, but basically nobody will ever remember her, which is tricky because she can never really form any like lasting relationships or have like a job or a place to live. So you're basically following her around with how she navigates the world with this unfortunate curse basically. And then for the first time in her life, somebody remembers her, and it is just like the best thing ever. The love story in this book is very unexpected and I absolutely loved it. It was so good. Another easy 5 out of 5 for me. After that, I read The Wife Between Us by Greer Hendricks. Normally my favorite way to read is to just go into most books completely blind, not having any idea what they're about or what the story is about. So when I went into this one, I had no idea that this is almost the exact same story as The Last Mrs Parish. And I felt like this was just a worse version of that book. It has a very similar story and plot and everything. These books are so extremely similar, literally the same exact plot, but I did not like this one nearly as much as The Last Mrs Parish. I do still think that it was really good, but it just wasn't as like wowing or as exciting for me. I give this one a 3 out of 5. After that, I read Fix Her Up by Tessa Bailey, and I had never read a Tessa Bailey book before, and I was really excited to read this one because I kept seeing all of her books recommended everywhere. People really love her, so I was excited to read it, and I was excited to get into a cute little rom-com after those three like less romantic books. I have so many mixed feelings about this book. Let me just start with what it's about. It's the brother's best friend trope, and it's about a girl who basically has a crush on her older brother's best friend like her whole life. He's a retired baseball player who got an injury and had to like move back home to their hometown, and she's like been obsessed with him her whole life basically. She's literally a clown, like a birthday clown. That's what she does as a job, is she is a clown. I go back and forth between thinking this book is so ridiculous, but also when I was reading it, it was kind of cute and it definitely did keep me interested. But like talking about it out loud, it is ridiculous. It was a ridiculous book. Like I said, this was my first Tessa Bailey experience. I guess she's very well known for her spicy scenes in books, and like, don't get me wrong, I love a good spicy book. I love some spice in my books. I have nothing against that, but something about the way that Tessa Bailey writes it is just not for me. And especially in this book, I think I really did not like the man character in this book. There was so much aggressive, dirty talking that was just, I just didn't like it. It was just not for me, but I know a lot of people really loved this book and really loved Tessa Bailey, so don't let my bad review deter you if you want to try it. But yeah, this book was not it for me. I gave this one a 2 out of 5 because it did keep me interested. Even though it was ridiculous, it was kind of cute, but it was, yeah, I don't know. After that, I read People We Meet on Vacation by Emily Henry, and I loved it. This book is so hyped up, and I feel like it deserves all of it. It was really, really good, really cute. I love Emily Henry's writing. She is so funny. I find myself laughing out loud reading her books because the banter that she creates between characters, it's just hilarious. You like love the characters so much. This is like a friends to lovers trope, and it was adorable. I loved this book. It was a 5 out of 5 for me. After that, I read They Both Die at the End by Adam Silvera. I went into this book having no idea what it was about, but I had seen a bunch of videos of people talking about how it was like super sad and like a really depressing book. Basically in this book, there is a service that calls you and lets you know on the day that you're going to die. So if you're gonna die that day, they call and let you know at midnight, like at some point in the next 24 hours, you're going to die. Basically so that you can wrap up your life and say your goodbyes, or like get in any last experiences that you can. And then you're reading the story from the 2 different characters' perspectives, and it was a really cute book. I thought that it was a little bit underwhelming. Like, I wasn't super impressed with it, but I wasn't like disappointed by it either. I just kind of felt like pretty wishy-washy about it. Yeah, I don't have any big strong feelings either way. I thought that it was a good book. I think it's still worth reading. I gave this one a 3 out of 5. After that, I finally got to read It Ends With Us by Colleen Hoover. I've been wanting to read this one forever. I see everybody talking about it constantly. And even though I saw everybody always talking about it, I managed to go into it having no idea what it was about still. And I am so glad I did. I feel like if you're gonna read this book, it's best to honestly not know what it's about at all. I feel like reading the summary or like the synopsis on it beforehand might really take away from watching the story unfold naturally. So if you haven't read this book before, read it, but don't look up what it's about first. Just go into it blindfolded and let it all unfold naturally. And this book was amazing. I read it so freaking fast. I highly recommend it. It was an easy 5 out of 5. After that, I decided to read another Emily Henry book, and I actually read her very first book ever, which is The Love That Split the World. This was her debut novel, her very first one, and it was so different than her current writing style and her current books that are out right now. And honestly, I did not love it. I did not think that Emily Henry could ever do me wrong, but this book was just not for me. Halfway through, I wanted to just not finish it and move on, but it's really hard for me to do that. And I always feel like maybe something better is coming up, so I just like suffer through it. Yeah, I just did not love this one. I gave this one a 2 out of 5, and honestly, that felt like a generous 2 out of 5. Then after that, I read Love at First Spite. This is by Anna E. Collins, and this is also her debut novel, her very first one. This is your very typical surface level rom-com book. It's nothing deep, nothing crazy, but it is cute and funny, and cheesy. But I was impressed that for her first book, this was really cute and funny, and it did keep me interested. It's an enemies to lovers trope, which I think is always kind of cute. It's basically about this girl who is about to get married, but then finds out that her fiance cheated on her, and they have this big messy breakup, and she ends up buying the empty lot next door to her ex-fiance's house, and her friends all go in together to put up a rental property in that spot to basically spite her ex by blocking his view and having like a rowdy rental property right next door to his house. All of that, and then there's some romance mixed in there, a little love story in there as well. So it was nothing amazing or spectacular, but it was a cute, easy, like funny read. So I gave that one a 3 out of 5. After that, I read Swear on This Life by Renee Carlino, and I was so excited to read this book because I hear so many people talking about this book and how it wrecked them, and Renee Carlino can do that to you. She is amazing at ripping your heart out and squashing it and then putting it back together, and I normally absolutely love her books. I did like this one, but it did not wreck me emotionally like I wanted it to, and in the end I actually felt kind of annoyed by it and annoyed by the characters. I don't know, I just didn't love it as much as I was hoping to. It's basically about this girl who gets this book from her roommate and reads it, and as she's reading it, she realizes that it's her life story that's written by her childhood best friend, and he's basically telling her story from her perspective, and they haven't been in contact for years and years. She had no idea that he was writing this book. It's a childhood friends to lovers trope, and it was a cute story, but like I said, it just did not wreck me the way I wanted it to, you know? It didn't have it for me. I gave this one a 3 out of 5. It was good, but not amazing. I expected more from it, but I still think it's worth it to read. After that, I read Very Sincerely Yours by Carrie Winfrey. This one was just randomly available on my library card, and I was like, okay, I guess I'll try it. Like, I was not excited to read this book. This is probably one of my favorite books now. It's definitely up there in my top 5, top 10. I loved this book. I thought it was adorable. It was so hard for me to put down. So many parts of it had me like laughing out loud and giggling like a schoolgirl reading this book. I thought it was so freaking cute. And literally one night, I think I stayed up until 2 in the morning reading it because I just literally could not put it down. I wanted to know what was gonna happen. This one is about a girl named Teddy who is in a long-term relationship with her college sweetheart boyfriend. They're having dinner. She's all excited. She thinks he's gonna propose. She's ready to spend the rest of her life with him, and instead of proposing, he actually breaks up with her and kicks her out of their house and is basically like, goodbye. She was just 1000% not expecting that. She thought that they were going to get married and spend their life together. So then she ends up moving in with her 2 girlfriends and trying to figure out what she's gonna do with her life, how she's gonna be independent. I don't want to give too much away, but I thought that this story was so cute. It was super cheesy though. Like, let me tell you, this book is cheesy. Like, so ridiculous, but also so funny and so cute. I really loved reading this one. I was sad when it was over. Yeah, this one's a 5 out of 5 for me. I definitely add this one to your list. After that, I decided to give Tessa Bailey one more chance, and I read It Happened One Summer. This one is so hyped up right now. I kept hearing about this book everywhere, and so I was excited to read it. I was excited to give Tessa Bailey another shot. It was the final nail in the coffin for Tessa Bailey for me. She's not for me. Her books are not for me. This was a big fat no for me. But that being said, people love her books, so don't let that off put you too much. It was kind of a cute, funny story though, and it kept me interested for about half of the book. I guess the main character of this book is like loosely based off of Alexis from Schitt's Creek, which made for a cute and funny story. It's basically about this very rich influencer type who gets in trouble in LA, and her rich dad basically like banishes her to this small fishing town. She's basically like grounded for 3 months and has to go figure out how to be like self-sustaining and like take care of herself in this small town. It's the gloomy sunshine trope. She's this adorable rich girl in this tiny town, and it's a romance between her and this big burly fisherman. Just like her other book, the story was cute and funny and like kept me interested, but also at the same time it was just so ridiculous. And the spicy scenes, you guys, they're just so bad for me. I just can't handle it. And it's like a huge bummer when you're reading like a romance rom-com book and like the whole time you're like building up to them like finally getting together, but then the way she writes the scenes, it's just like, oh, I'm not kidding. This is what I look like when I'm reading her spicy scenes. I'm not kidding. That's the face I make. I think that Tessa Bailey just has a very specific type of male character that she creates for all of her books. I've only read 2, but they've been almost exactly the same in both books. And I bet I could guess that in any of her other books, the male character in those is probably pretty similar to these two, which is basically just like a big, burly, cranky man who is like grumpy and mad and doesn't want to fall in love, but then does. And they're somewhat normal up until the point that they're about to have sex, and then they become these filthy mouthed, dirty talking men. It's too much for me. I mean, she was describing the pubes. She was very detailed, like describing his penis. She described parts of the male anatomy that I didn't need to be described to me in that way. The way she described a butthole, the pubes, all of it, like trying to make it hot, but it wasn't hot. It was just, I don't know. I don't ever want to yuck anybody's yum because a lot of people love this book. A lot of people love the way that Tessa Bailey writes her spicy scenes. But after this book, I'm just done with her. It's not for me. Halfway through the book, I was just like waiting for it to be over. I was like, please get this over with. I don't want to read this book anymore. Yeah, I don't know. Sorry to go on such a huge rant about this book, but I gave this one a 2 out of 5. That felt generous. I just didn't love it. I don't love it. I'm done with her. After that, I read You Deserve Each Other by Sarah Hogel. This is another enemies to lovers romance rom-com book, and it's basically about an engaged couple who hate each other, and they have so much miscommunication. They are so passive aggressive. They basically like should not be engaged, and they're just like living together, basically trying to get the other one to break up with them is what it seems like. You're reading it from the perspective of the girl, and I kind of hated her the whole first half of the book because she was just being so passive aggressive and mean, and you're like, be nice to him. It can be kind of hard to read those like miscommunication tropes, but it all works out in the end, and it's actually really cute, and it wraps up really well, and I really loved the ending, and I really loved like the second half of the book. I give this one like a 3.5 to 4 out of 5. Okay, the very last book that I read in February, I actually finished it this morning. Today's March 1st, so I'm gonna put it into this video, and that is The Honeymooners by Christina Lauren. And this book was so cute. This is another one that is so hyped up right now. I see it everywhere. I see it all over Book Talk, all over BookTube, and for good reason. It was adorable. Another enemies to lovers trope and like fake dating. I don't want to give too much away about this book, but basically these two people that really don't like each other and don't get along end up going on this vacation where they have to pretend to be on their honeymoon, and so they are together for 10 days in this like honeymoon suite in Hawaii and have to pretend that they are newlyweds. And there's a lot of other stuff that goes on in this book too, besides just their little honeymoon romance and everything. I loved it. It was so cute. This one had me laughing out loud a lot too. Her writing was really funny, and the end of the book was so sweet, like all wrapped up so perfectly. I loved it. This one definitely deserves all of the hype that it gets. This was a 5 out of 5 for me. It was really, really cute. Okay, that is all of the books that I read in February. It was a lot, I know. I'm gonna try to dial it back in March and not have 14 freaking books to talk about. If you have read any of these books, I would love to hear what you think about them in the comments, or if you have any other book suggestions for me to add to my hold on my library card, let me know. I'll put my Goodreads account in the description box if you guys wanna follow me on there. But yeah, I think that's all I have for this video. So thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and follow us on Instagram, and I will see you guys all in my next video.